I'm a firm believer in a concept that if a sales rep can ask effective question, that sales rep can naturally close more deals. And on today's conversation with our friend Kim Fredrich, she's going to tell us exactly how we can use our value proposition to ask more meaningful questions. It's good. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have Kim Fredrich, who is a sales conversation coach. Now, Kim works with a lot of amazing clients, as well as coming from her years of experience. She's been in the trenches. She knows those questions that we should ask and how we can be able to be more effective in our conversation. Listen to what she shares, listen to how she shares it, and see how you can mold it into the way that you're selling and to help you improve your sales game. Welcome to the show, Kim.
So good to be here.
Of course, it's so good to be here. I was bragging in the teaser and I was telling folks how we connected in person at Fred Diamond's event, the Institute get together, and back in January, before any of us were aware of this really amazing, crazy time we're going to be going into, and then we fostered that relationship on LinkedIn, and now we're here, and I admire you and the things that you share. So I'm excited to pick your brain for a few minutes here and get some insights that can help our community.
I love it. I always like to share those insights because I'm kind of like you. I like to make sure that I'm helping people who can do better and be better.
Right? I mean, that's what it's all about. I think if we can leave a legacy when it's all said and done, I mean, I don't want people to say, oh, Donald was a cool guy. I want them to say that if I could help impact an individual and they could take that and impact somebody else's life or their life, then we did something good, we're something carrying on, So.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mentioned a little bit about what you do. Do you mind giving us a little bit more of a Kim version of that?
Sure. So when we met, I was working with small business owners to actually help them feel more comfortable and more confident having sales conversations. And what I realized through this whole COVID crisis, it wasn't exactly linked, but really early on in the crisis, when everyone was running around with their heads cut off, what do we do? What do we do? How can we possibly make sales calls? I said, don't. Just call your clients. Just call them and ask them how they are. And I did the same thing. And what was so interesting, what I heard from my clients was, you know what, Kim, I'm actually pretty comfortable having sales conversations if people call me, so an inbound sales conversation. And I said, okay, that's really interesting. And I said, well, what would happen if I made the sales calls for you and I did outbound sales calls for you so you didn't have to? And they all said, really? Can you really do that? So that's actually what I have started doing. I am still coaching and consulting with my small business clients too, but I am also now building a second part to my business, which is this outbound sales for small service-based businesses who aren't quite big enough to hire their first salesperson. So the idea is that we get them to that place. We grow them to a place where they're like, all right, I'm ready now to hire somebody because I'm big enough to support that, and I know they can generate the revenue that I need.
Oh, fantastic. I love the pivot there too, because it shows where still the idea of being nimble, being able to go where the puck is or where the puck is going to be, according to Wayne Gretzky.
I'm Canadian. I know who Wayne Gretzky is.
Don't you know?
We were horrified when he left. But anyway.
Well, great. Well, let's take that and go into the conversation today, because I think that segues really well. We want to talk about our questions. We want to talk about our effective sales questions, because when it's all said and done, we all have a value proposition or something that we feel is a value prop, or maybe that our client feels a value prop. But how do we go about generating some really good sales questions that can help lead to that value prop or around a value proposition? Is that fair enough to talk about today?
Absolutely. Well, and I know you've had other guests on here who've said things like, you need to ask good questions. And I'm going to add more to that, not just the good questions, which we talked about, the listening part. The listening part is even more important. So you need to craft the kinds of questions that are going to open someone up for a real discussion, and that you then are going to really be able to listen carefully, listen for what's not being said, and just kind of put it all together so that that question becomes so much more than just a question. And of course, it goes without saying, this is not a closed question. You cannot answer it with yes or no. And I kind of like to tell my clients that the only time you should be giving a question that answers with yes or no is the one, are you ready to work with me? Right? We're hoping for a yes there, but that's the only time. So those open-ended questions that are going to, I call them compelling questions. What do you call them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of those. I like the idea of the conversational question. It
Yeah,
leads to something rather than just me, like you said, getting a yes or no, which they definitely have their
right.
place, but it's not like you can't you can't build value on just yes or no.
No, and it's too easy for it to stop the conversation. When
Yeah.
someone answers no, where do you go from there? So when I talk with my clients about compelling questions, they're not just open-ended
Mm.
questions. They're the kind of questions that are really going to make the person you're speaking to really make them think about what challenges they're facing or the outcome that they are trying to achieve. But they're phrased and crafted in such a way that they answer in a way that is useful and valuable to you, that goes far beyond just sharing what's going on with their own business. And that's the part about tying it to your value proposition.
Yeah.
Because so this probably won't surprise you. This is my Xerox training. So I come from
Yeah.
the Xerox sales training sales training school. So one of the things that we were taught there was to be able to ask the kind of question that made the person think, oh, I never considered that. Like, this was
Yes.
when there was new technology that the prospect maybe wouldn't have heard about before, that solved a problem that we all knew they were having, but they weren't aware that this technology could help them solve that problem. So we were taught to ask questions that would kind of open that conversation, like, is this something that is occurring in your business, and how much time are you losing, and blah blah blah. So relative to, at that time, it was scanning features, which is ancient history now, right? But okay, so I'm showing my age. Anyway, so what I like to tell people to do, and this is important for another reason too, Donald, a lot of salespeople aren't clear on what their value proposition is.
Mm.
They're not always aware of what are the things that make their company better or different than any other possible competitive offering, even if it's not a direct competitive offering, because that stuff's generally handled by the marketing team. Except, as a salesperson, you need to know those things because you need to be able to talk confidently about them. But more importantly, it's really amazing what can happen when you link those things to your questions. So I think probably the best thing I can do is give an example.
Yeah. I was
Um,
just you read my mind.
we're on a good wavelength today, aren't we?
Tell you what.
Yeah. So I worked with a client earlier this year who was, they're an in-person fitness provider at
Hmm.
luxury condominium and apartment buildings. So,
Sure.
these are the kind of places where they say, well, we offer you this and we offer you this and we offer you all these wonderful amenities in order to have people sign leases.
Yep.
And this was pre-COVID. One of their value propositions was that their fitness programs were offered in person. They weren't a video you had to follow. And part of what they were doing was creating and building community, which
Mm.
was really of value to the property owners, because it was something they could say, hey, if you come and sign a lease here, this is all the stuff we can do. We can create. There's your young people who maybe are moving new to a city, so there's a
Yep.
community being created. So what I worked with them on is they said, look, we need to have you asking questions that highlight this that we know is a competitive differentiator. And so I worked with them to come up with a question, and it came out something like, how important is it to you that your programming happens as scheduled? And what this was trying to get to was that they had a large pool of in-person instructors so that there was never a chance that if someone was sick or there was an issue or whatever, there was never a possibility that the program wouldn't happen as scheduled.
Yeah.
And that was important for these luxury communities. So you went really quiet there for just a minute.
No, I was nodding and listening to you. Did it go out?
Yeah, so yeah, it did, but that's okay. You're back now.
We'll
So
edit.
that was just an example of being able to be very clear on what your value proposition is. And then secondly, to be able to put some time and effort into crafting those questions. And they should be, as you know, they shouldn't be rote things. They
Yeah.
shouldn't be like, oh my God, I have to ask these 3 questions in this order. Never doesn't work. You need to be able to respond in a sales conversation to the conversation as to and to what the client or prospective client is saying. So I always like people to have 3 or 4
Yeah.
that address different parts of their value proposition so that they can feel comfortable bringing up any one of those 3 or 4 or 2, whatever is appropriate. But it really leads to the prospective client not really having any answer other than that yours is the best solution.
So let's
Right?
go. Yeah, let's go back to the conversation then with the this person doing the in-person training.
Yeah.
If what would be so the value proposition for that is new to a city. I'm moving from Montana to DC. Got my first gig with a senator or whatever, and
Yeah,
and
it happens.
and now I'm trying to find a place, a community in the area. That's one of the value prop that this organization has. Is it? Was there anything else, or is that? How, and then how would the
Oh,
question type it?
there were other things, and so
Okay.
I see I can understand where the disconnect there is for you. So that was the value proposition for my
The
client's
yeah.
client. Yeah, so there was sort of a two-way there.
Gotcha.
Right. So they were selling to my client, a fitness provider was selling to these luxury apartment companies, the management companies, and their in turn, their prospective clients were these people moving into the city who were looking for accommodations, but also a community.
Yeah, like the transplant coming in. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, and there were several other things that they had that really set them apart from other fitness providers. So we were able to work together to craft those questions that allowed them to really like hit on the things that were important to their clients, the
Yeah.
property managers, and to be able to highlight them as why they were the best solution. So I want to just go back to that
Yeah.
because I am aware that when you listen to this, it sounds a little bit manipulative.
You know, that was gonna be my
And
next question. I was gonna ask, how do we make sure we don't come across as one of those guys?
yeah, we don't want to be one of those guys. No, not at all. Well, this is so important that this part is part of this discussion.
Yeah.
Have to be coming from a place of service first.
Mm.
Your service or product, whatever it is, has to actually be a good fit for the person you're speaking to. That you believe that it is potentially a good fit based on other questions that you've asked. So presumably in your sales conversation, you've done some discovery, you've done your homework, you've started to uncover what are some of the issues. You're not deploying these out of the gate. You have
Yeah.
some obviously rapport and you're understanding what the situation is. And I think one of your previous guests talked about this too. It's about relationships, and you can't just say buy my thing right away. And it has to be a case of, does my product or service actually meet this person's need? Then you can ask these kinds of questions because you know you can help them.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're allowing that conversation to kind of naturally, they kind of figure it out themselves because
Yeah.
you've set it up so that you know what they're, and I'm not going to say pain, you know what it is they're trying to overcome or what they're trying to achieve. And you're connecting what makes you better or different to what's going to help them fix whatever's wrong or help them achieve whatever they're trying to achieve,
I'm new to
which
an
isn't
industry. Yeah,
non-manipulative.
and I think that's not manipulative. I think that's just a natural conversation. And I think coming back to the idea of the intent, like you're trying to help them solve that problem that's holding them back. And I would ask play the, I'm in a role where I'm in a new to a company. I know several people have changed their roles recently, gone into new organizations during this time period. How do I figure out if I don't already know the value proposition of that client? Any
That is
thoughts on
such a
that?
good question. Such a good question. Yeah, absolutely. If it's a really small company, go ask the business owner.
Yeah,
And it's certainly possible that they don't know. In which case, then you say, hey, well, can we maybe sit down and kind of hash this out? Because it's really going to help us do better at what we're
yeah,
doing. If we can be clear and articulate this in a way that makes sense for our prospective clients. If it's a larger business and there's a marketing department, and you go talk to the marketing director and ask those questions, because it is amazing how many businesses cannot articulate this.
yeah,
But if you're out there pounding the pavement, whatever that looks like these days, right? How can you possibly set your offer apart from anybody else's offer if you don't know those things?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it requires you to put your thinking cap on and look for ways to be able to connect with them and figure that out, because you can't go with like just guessing. You need to make sure you can't go and wing it. You have to make sure you go with
Right.
that laser focused preparation. And I think that's what's critical right now, especially during
Mhm.
this interesting time. I was on this program this morning, and one of the things that I was sharing with the host was that concept. He asked, "What do you think changed with COVID?" And I said, "I think COVID was amazing in so many ways. It was sad
Mhm.
in a lot, but in a sense of how it makes our business evolve and our sales approach, that was great, because now we can't just expect, like in a bull market, to just come and toss any old crappy email or a phone call and expect to get
Mhm.
through. It has to be because the buyer on the other end is being cautious. Whatever you share or what questions you ask that are tying to that value, it must tie back to the value prop. It must be personalized, and you got to make sure you
Yeah.
come, because if I'm a business owner, I don't want you to come in front of me and for me to educate you. I got many other things to do right now than to educate you.
Oh, 100%, 100%. One
Yeah,
of the best things I saw in the last couple of years was a thing about if you're selling to the C-suite, here's why your discovery questions don't work. It's because you should already know most of that stuff. If
yeah,
there's anything that's available in the public domain, you have absolutely no excuse for not knowing that before you have a conversation with this person. Like that's just the kind of bare standard now where you need to
yeah.
start. Something else that I was just thinking about what you're saying about the COVID crisis has really focused everyone
Hmm.
too. We've all been, everybody on the buying side, the selling side, everywhere, we've been forced to reevaluate things. And when you do that, you're suddenly like, okay, you know what? That was not working. I need to do this better. And if the best thing you can say about your product or service is that it's the cheapest, then like you're not going to get very far, right? So like if you can say, well, we're the fastest growing, so back to my fitness provider client,
Yeah,
we're the fastest organically growing fitness provider in the country. But you know what? That says something. It means they do a really good job because people are referring them and they're able to grow. And it's a sort of an unspoken, hey, we can trust these people,
yeah,
right? So this is, again, it's so critical. And I'm not saying it's easy. Finding out what your unique things are is really hard sometimes. And also, salespeople think less than they used to, but there used to be a tendency to focus always on the features
yeah,
and not the benefits. And it needs to be benefits, and it
yeah.
needs to be tied to emotion. What is the person actually buying? Are they buying a widget, or are they buying the fact that this is going to make their life better and them more efficient and put them in line for a promotion? You know?
Yeah, I think it comes back to this notion that if they're how is this it needs to be, don't just sell me a knife, what's the utility behind it? I don't need a knife,
Yeah.
but I do need a way to be able to cut this birthday cake for my kid's first birthday. and I need something
Exactly.
that looks great for when we do that Zoom meeting, the Zoom birthday cake cutting ceremony. I want people to see that this is awesome. That's what I
Right.
want. Any knife could do that, but I need something that is going to stand out, and I think that makes a
Right.
difference. Yeah.
Or maybe, yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
Look at
you got it.
that. Now, you mentioned some of the examples of your clients. Do you have any other examples that you would be willing to share? I know I'm putting you on a spot here. Any personal ones that you have?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I had a conversation with a fellow who's in Indiana,
Hmm.
and we were talking about this new service that I have, which is the outsourced sales calls, outbound outsourced sales calls. So
Yeah.
for business owners who really either can't do it because they hate it, or don't do it because they hate it, or just they're doing too many other things, so they don't
Yeah.
get to it, and it always falls to the bottom, right? And he said, well, in his industry, there's already a really established industry around supporting his industry, which happened to be IT. And he said, but it's mostly offshore.
Mm.
The people who are making outbound sales calls, as BDRs or SDRs, whatever they want to be called, are offshore. And he said, and that doesn't work for me here in Indiana.
Mm.
My clients do not want to hear a voice that sounds potentially foreign. And so, when I thought in that case, had he not shared that with me, but now that he did, in a situation where I was talking with someone in a similar scenario as that, I might say something like, how do your clients feel about hearing a voice that is not American?
Yeah.
Because it sets it up for me. I only run American and North American salespeople, and I myself, of course, am North American. I'm not offshoring any of that. So if that's important to my prospect, asking that question sort of opens it up and sets me up as different from what generally happens in the industry.
Yeah. And it brings so much more value to the table when you know what is important to them. I think people will tell you how to sell to them, and go back to what you said a little bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen for what they're not saying, because there is a reason there. And sometimes if you listen hard enough, it's basically they're telling you, like they're just, if you had more time and we could go deeper into it, there's probably a reason why in their industry that's the case. Why they don't, or part of the state, like certain states, they probably just want to
Mm-hmm.
hear good old
They're
American.
just they're just more conservative, and it's important to them that their business stays local.
Yeah.
And actually, we had a little bit of a giggle because I said, "Do I sound okay?" Because some people call me out. I am not American, and some people catch that. So it's interesting that, and what you said too about listening. When you ask the right kinds of open-ended questions and you get people talking, it is amazing what they share. It really, really is. Now, of course, there will always be some people who are very closed and keep their cards very close to their chest, but I really believe that if you've established a good rapport with someone and you are able to ask the questions and keep it going in a conversational way, even if you're doing it like this on Zoom and you're having to look for nonverbal cues much more than you would if you were in person. And admittedly, it is much, much harder this way. But it's astounding what people tell you without even realizing what they're telling you.
Yeah. Oh man, so much good stuff there. I wish I could talk to you for like another hour about this stuff, but I'm sure you have many other things to go do, and I'm sure listeners to this are saying, "Donald, I'm just pulling up to the grocery store now. I need to put on my mask and run in." So, but if there's one major takeaway you want folks listening to this episode to walk away with, what's that one major piece of advice?
Most important thing is to ask good questions, but more importantly, listen to the answers.
Well, we'll love that. Kim, somebody's listening to this and she or he wants to get connected with you. How do they go about doing so?
Best place is LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and you'll see there all the sorts of things that I do. Oh, and I know you'll put this in your show notes. My last name is spelled very strangely. It's Fredrich with an H on the end. So Kim Fredrich is how I pronounce it, but it's Fredrich. We think we lost
Fredrich.
an I somewhere along the line. Yeah.
Well, we'll go ahead and we'll put that in there. So Fredrich is spelling
Yeah.
Frederick.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, and I highly recommend you connect with her as well, and to see if how she can help you and your team. If you're watching this on TSE TV, I want you to go ahead and hit subscribe and make sure you check out the link below to connect with Kim. Kim, thanks so much for watching and for being here and sharing the insights and being a fan of our community. We appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been just a lot of fun, and I agree. I think our conversation could continue for a long time.
Well, thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Listen, if you can ask effective questions, I promise you can sell. And if you want to learn more how to improve your questioning game to have better conversation, I recommend you check out Kim Fredrich. And she also has a book, and I love the title of the book. I wrote it down so you can make sure I say it exactly. If you can have a conversation, you can sell. And she's 100% right on that. If you can help people recognize the value by just being a human being, listen, they're going to love you. They're going to connect with you, realize that you can offer a solution to the problems they have, and they're going to sing you praises. So connect with Kim. Now, speaking about singing you praises, I want you guys to check out my friends over at Pipedrive. Pipedrive typically gives a 14-day trial to their system. But because you're the TSE audience, they're saying TSE audience member get a 30-day trial. That's amazing. And then on top of that, they'll give you 25% off the first 3 months. All you have to do is use promo code Pipedrive TSE at checkout. We have that down there on the link. You could check it out below. Just go to Pipedrive, use promo code Pipedrive TSE. Now, I also want to tell you about my friends over at Wingman. And Wingman is a fantastic tool. That AI software listens to your conversations and prompts you and guides you so you can actually close more deals. It's supporting you while you're working from home by yourself. We all need a little bit of help sometimes, right? So Wingman is pretty neat, and they're willing to give you a Black Friday deal that is not like any typical Black Friday deal. They're giving you, check this out, 50% off the first 60% off the first 6 months of Wingman. You can't beat these deals, man. I'm telling you, just simply go to Wingman, trywingman.com, and then use promo code TSE. Again, promo code TSE. We have that stuff down there in the link. I want you guys to succeed. I told my friends over these software companies to help you guys out. I want to give you the tools that's going to make you successful. So I want you to take advantage of them. I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to be able to close more deals. But most importantly, I want to challenge you each and every single day to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.